Hello everyone, a very good afternoon to you. Welcome to the Misano World Circuit, Marco Simoncelli, for round 2 of the Ferrari Challenge in our 2023 season. And as you can see, the sun is shining, the grid is packed with people to enjoy the warm-up ahead of Coppa Shell Race 2, the mix of Coppa Shell drivers and Coppa Shell&AM drivers that will take to the track for their 30-minute race to come this afternoon. It is Coppa Shell Race 2, the Shell drivers with yellow sun strips across the top of the windscreen, the Shell&AM drivers with the black strip across the top of the windscreen. So it is the Misano World Circuit, Marco Simoncelli, which is adjacent to the Adriatic. It's a pretty nice location for a racing circuit, that's for sure. That's precisely where we are. We invite you to be part of our social media family. Follow us on @Ferrari Races. Misano then, and the track is something of a challenge for our drivers. Forgive the challenge pun, but we have some 21 of those Coppa Shell drivers out there on track that will try and master the tarmac around the 4.2 kilometers. And there you can see air temperature is 27 degrees right now. The track temperature is 35 degrees, and there's hardly a flutter of wind to cool us, unfortunately. And it's going to be very hot inside those 4-a-day Challenge Evo cars, that's for sure. And there you can see everyone down there on the grid assembling ahead of the start of the race. And down there in the heat of it all the action is Ludovica. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon to everyone and welcome back to Misano for race 2 of Coppa Shell. Yesterday was a very competitive and showing day, and the race was very fighting between all the drivers. And all the drivers and the teams are ready for start this race. There is a great atmosphere, there is a great weather, so the perfect condition to drive today. But now dive up into the emotions and the grid of Misano and listen the poleman of today of Coppa Shell. Okay. Willem, congratulations for your pole this weekend. Is going very good for you. And I want to ask you, what do you expect from Axel Sartingen for this race today?
Well, Axel is a very, very good driver. I expect a good start and a clean start from him. But I hope, it's not expecting, that I manage to stay just ahead of him in the first sector.
Okay, and what is your strategy to maintain until the end of this race your position, your pole position?
I think I'm just going to have to stay calm, and depending on what the race asks, I need to be able to respond, because there might be safety cars, but my strategy is to lead from the front and not look back too much.
Okay, thank you for your time. Have a good race.
Thank you.
And then from the second position, Axel Sartingen, who won the race 1 yesterday, and certainly today will try to get the best lap and the podium. For the moment is all, and back to you guys.
Thank you so much, Ludovica. Then speaking to Willem van der Vorm, who did a very good job in qualifying and put the car on pole position. Big shout out to Willem's partner, wife, Sophia, who is here this afternoon as well. And there indeed is Axel Sartingen being spoken to by Björn Grossman, who is his driver coach this weekend, former Ferrari Challenge multi-champion. And of course, Axel Sartingen previously coached and normally coached by Daniele Diamato, who holds the same pedigree, if you will, as Björn Grossman. But whatever Björn told him, it certainly worked yesterday, because Axel did a great job in qualifying and did an even better job, if I may say, in the race, and managed his race absolutely perfectly. Today, of course, he has got a slight obstacle in that of the Scuderia Monte Carlo driver, Willem van der Vorm, who he needs to get past if he wants to occupy that P1 position. we were looking at Manuela Gosner, daughter of this driver, Thomas Gosner, who we can see in the number 161 car. And Thomas Gosner going from P4 on the grid. Manuela is P5. And you can see alongside Thomas Gosner, you can just see the shark's teeth in the front end of the 4-8-8 Challenge Evo of von Skeltermar. But it is Thomas Gosner, the CDP MP racing driver that we are looking at right now. I think Ludovica was selling the story of yesterday's race. Well, it was certainly dramatic, and it was littered with various track limits penalties as well. And we think that maybe the drivers who've had an additional briefing today with regards to the track limits, whether today's race will be perhaps a little bit smoother. There you can see Christian Kinch, driver of car number 128, and he's down there on the grid. And Christian, back to the Ferrari Challenge, has qualified his car on P7. He had a regrettable time of it yesterday. A technical issue meant that he couldn't complete the race, so he'll be hoping for better things today. Christian Kinch going in car number 128. Now, alongside Christian Kinch should be Roger Grols. And I can't see Roger's car there. You can see there's an empty from our drone shot there. There's an empty pit box. So, here is the Misano World Circuit Marco Simoncelli. First sector, as you can see, which contains turns 1 through to 6, is quite technical. Second sector, a little bit less so, with some real power parts, particularly from turn 9, where through turn 10 and turn 11 you run almost full chair flat. Then into the third sector, which is a very, very technical sector once again. Here's Manuela Gosner.
Ciao a tutti, mi chiamo Manuela Gosner, corro nel Ferrari Challenge nella squadra CDP MP Racing e siamo qua nella pista di Misano. Venite con me a scoprire questa pista bellissima. Siamo nel primo settore della pista, questa è la curva 456, è un punto dove serve tantissima aggressività per affrontarla al meglio. La frenata più importante che abbiamo qua in tutto il circuito. Qui a Misano è una pista di motociclisti in realtà, quindi abbiamo i cordoli bassissimi e cerchiamo veramente di sfruttarli al meglio sia in entrata che uscita. Siamo arrivati in curva 6. Una curva che affrontiamo in quinta marcia, super veloce, quasi tutta piena. Veramente importante tagliare all'interno tutto il cordolo, sfruttare i cordoli in uscita al massimo, al limite del track limit, in modo da avere una velocità veramente importante per poter fare un attacco in gara alla prossima curva che si chiama Quercia, che è il punto più adatto per poter fare un sorpasso. Siamo arrivati alla parte più iconica di Misano, le curve 11, 12 e 13. Affrontiamo la prima piega in sesta marcia, tutto pieno, settima marcia, 270 km all'ora con la macchina tutta appoggiata in scivolamento per tagliare al meglio l'ultima parte del curvone in modo da arrivare al caro il tormentino dopo. Oltre alla tecnica serve veramente tanto coraggio. Siamo alla fine di questo giro nella bellissima pista di Misano. Spero che vi è piaciuto, vi ho raccontato qualche segreto, però ovviamente non posso raccontare tutti i segreti di questa pista. Continuate a seguirci, un abbraccio a tutti, ciao ciao!
Thank you, Manuela Gosner, who gave us some of the secrets, but not all of the secrets. Hence the use of Italian language, you know. Thank you very much, Manuela. For giving us the track presentation of the Misano World Circuit Marco Simoncelli. The Richard Mille safety car is ready to lead the cars away on the formation lap. As always in Ferrari Challenge, it is a rolling start, and therefore it will be the responsibility of Willem van der Worm and Axel Zardiger to control the pace of the rolling start once the safety car has left the grid. And it will do that in the end of the formation lap, and that is about to get underway. Stand by for race 2. For Ferrari Challenge Coppa Shell. And right on cue, the Richard Mille safety car leads the cars away. Here comes the grid in full. Willem van der Worm, brilliant pole position. Well done, P1. Axel Zardiger, yesterday's race winner, goes from P2. Von Skeltermar going to be a danger man from P3, and Thomas Gosner goes from P4. Manuela Gosner and Eric Chung then are on the third row of the grid. It's P5 and P6, and Then we get to Christian Kinch and Roger Grols, who initially was appeared to be missing on the grid. It's Peter Christensen and John Dillon going from P9 and P10. Onto the 6th row of the grid, where we find Christian Herdvipper and Alexander Nussbaumer, another driver that could be very dangerous from his P12 starting position. The best of the AM drivers, Kirk Beervold, what a star you are, P1 in class, P13 overall, Henrik Kamstrup alongside P14. Then it's Stefano Marazzi and Martinus Richter, who go from the 8th row of the grid. Giuseppe Romelli and Tommy Lindroth go from P17 and P18 on the grid overall. And it's Mutlo Tarzev and Pino Frascaro are on the 10th row of our Ferrari Challenge Coppa Shell grid, with Motohiko Isazaki, who's picked up a penalty and a grid drop and therefore goes from last place on the grid. And expect Motohiko Isazaki to do some overtaking. Alongside me, my German colleague Nico Spalek with brilliant English language. What do you got to tell me?
Well, good afternoon, everybody. And there is Roger Grols, and that was about what I was going to tell you. He had an incident yesterday. He starts from pit lane and therefore behind Motohiko Isazaki even. He will join the Crocodile. He might hope for an early safety car to catch up with everybody, but obviously we all hope, everybody else hopes that's not going to happen. Everybody makes it through the first few turns cleanly, but obviously Roger Grols, if he can make it up and catch up with the Shell&AM drivers, then he will try to slice through that pack like the proverbial hot knife through butter.
Well, Roger Grols is certainly overtaker. He knows how to do that, but he's having to start from, as Nico said, the pit lane. Will pick up the back end of the grid then when the formation lap comes to an end. Giuseppe Romelli we're on board with right now, the Coppa Shell&AM driver. Very experienced driver is Giuseppe, and he is ready to rock and roll. He's going to be going for in this race, of that you can have no doubt. There are two legends together you saw there. It was Manuel Reuter and Franz Engstler that we were looking at, and there is Elysia Donner then, who is, hello, one of our Trofeo Pirelli drivers and one of our formidable Trofeo Pirelli drivers that we saw there. So cars then being led around into the stadium section now by the Richard Mills safety car, which will peel off into the pit lane. It becomes the responsibility of Willem van der Vorm and Axel Sardingen to control the pace of the rolling start. It's at this point the anticipation and excitement begins to build. We throw in a music bed to add to the drama as we get ready to start racing with Ferrari Challenge Coppa Shell Race 2. It's on its way. Lights go out, let's get ready to rock, and von Skeltermar immediately trying to put himself between Axel Sardingen and Willem van der Vorm, who had an almost identical pace at the start, but Sardingen has just got his nose ahead of Willem van der Vorm as Manuel Agostner has gone around. And I think that is one of two cars. I think von Skeltermar getting called out in that as well, which has put him back, and he was vying for a P2 place. But Axel Sardingen, what a brilliant start for him. Finds himself in P1. Having out-dragged just marginally Willem van der Vorm right at the very start of the race. So on we go through the first sequence of turns, and we can see that Manuel Agostner has dropped down the order. Now, bear in mind that Roger Grols was joining the pack from the pit lane, and of course von Skeltermar, you can see just into the picture there, has got a huge amount of overtaking to do, because he was one of the drivers caught up in that. And there is Axel Sardingen, who's beginning to stretch his legs over Willem van der Vorm. Thomas Gostner is P3. Now, the big beneficiary in all of that, Nico, was John Dillon, who we can see behind now, because we're riding on board with Thomas Gostner looking backwards. John Dillon is up to P4.
Yeah, definitely. And he was towards the end of the Shell drivers, and he really made a move. Thomas Gostner today was the beneficiary in the Gostner disadvantage by Manuela, just the opposite of how it was yesterday. So inter-family trade of roles, and as you said, Axel Sardingen, he made it early, and the outside through turn 1 became the inside through turn 2, and that's where he made the move stick.
Absolutely, you nailed that perfectly, and he was just utterly determined, and because they were absolutely side by side, he became and maintained his commitment to that. In fairness, Willem van der Vorm allowed him racing room, didn't squeeze him at all, so very fair fight between the two of them, which should be credited. And now you can see Von Skeltema is really trying to make his way back. Now leading in Coppa Shell&AM is Kirk Beervold, who has put Alexander Nussbaumer between himself and Martinus Richter. And great job being done by Martinus Richter, who's up to P2, with Giuseppe Romelli running in P3. So he is ahead of Henrik Kamstrup. So we continue to go racing. And let's take a look at a replay of the start here. Now you can see that Skeltema almost put himself between Sardigan and Willem van der Vorm, and then Manuela Gosner, well, she tried to... I'd like to see that from a different camera angle, because I don't know. I mean, Manuela Gosner tried to go around the front of Axel Sarti, of Von Skeltema, and inevitably there was contact between the two of them. Björn Grossman looks on.
Steady on.
He knew he was on camera at that point. He suddenly changed his facial reaction, didn't he? So the order is Sardigan, van der Vorm, Gosner. Then it is Beervold, Richter and Romelli. There is Eric Chung. Von Skeltema has got by Peter Christensen, so he's making his way up the order. And there you can see the 151 car of John Dillon that is currently running P4. Now, who's he got right behind him? Well, John Dillon has got Eric Chung and Christian Herdweber for company. So John Dillon is targeting the car of Thomas Gosner ahead of him. And of course, he doesn't want to leave himself too vulnerable to the potential danger man, which is Eric Chung, that he's right behind him. So the Grey Paul driver doing a good job here, so too Christian Kinch, and Von Skeltema, of course, having to try and make his way up the order. Now, two yellow cars are P1 and P2 in Coppa Shell&AM, and they are Kirk Beervold and Martinus Richter. And we can see the returning Manuela Gosner as well, who's having to make her way back. She's got Giuseppe Romelli ahead of her, and then Martinus Richter before she can get on terms with the next in her target sites for Coppa Shell, which is going to be Alexander Nussbaumer.
Absolutely, and Christian Herdweber, the blue car that is running behind this pack as John Dillon is having a look. Christian Herdweber, who came up from P11, is up to P6 and has overtaken quite a few of his Shell competitors. So a good start from him through all that melee. The German working his way up the order, and John Dillon doing exactly the same.
Yes, John Dillon doing a good job here. He's very mindful of the fact that he's got Eric Chung right behind him, but is very much targeting getting by Thomas Gosner. That would put him into a provisional podium place, but of course very early days in this story so far, with some 25.5 minutes still to run for the race. And here we can see that Eric Chung is now beginning to turn the wick up a little bit on John Dillon. We can see Von Skeltema is right on the back of Christian Kinch now. We just called that at the back of the shot, and there you can see it. Those two cars are virtually welded together. Von Skeltema taking a look at the inside of Christian Kinch. Now, whether he was able to make that move pay off, we know not. But we will see if there is a change in the graphics order to the left-hand side of your screen. I think not, because the white and green car of Christian Kinch stays ahead of Von Skeltema momentarily. But Von Skeltema will have the bit between his teeth, Nico, because of the incident with Manuela Gosner. Of course, he's got to work so hard when you consider right at the start of the race he was vying for a potential P2 place.
Absolutely, and Manuela Gosner is a good keyword because she is moving up the order following the incident at the very early stages, and now she is overtaking Giuseppe Romelli and is chasing Martinus Richter. This is significant because they are 3rd, 3rd and 2nd in the Shell&AM, and that obviously means she is coming up on Alexander Nussbaumer and our AM leader Kirk Beervold.
Here comes Von Skeltema on the inside of Christian Kinch, and he set that up perfectly. And again, credit to Christian Kinch allowing racing room, and that was a very clean and tidy overtake from Von Skeltema, who now moves himself up to P7 in class ahead of Christian Kinch. And credit to both of those drivers. So it is Christian Kinch now P8, Von Skeltema is P7. Now, interestingly, you were mentioning there about Manuela Gosner, who's coming up against Martinus Richter. Of course, it's a non-in-class battle, and therefore Martinus Richter may feel, do you know what, I'm just going to let Manuela Gosner come through. Although, just as we mentioned that, I can see that Manuela Gosner has been given a drive-through penalty for causing a collision. Let's go down to Ludovica.
Yes, about what happened in the start for Manuela Gostner, I told with one of the members of the team who tells me that Manuela probably touched with Fons Skelterman, and now two cars are under investigation.
Well, that investigation has wrapped up, and well, you know, race control has many more angles than we have, and they have decided that it was Manuela Gostner's fault in this incident, and Fons Skelterman, the man who suffered. Anyway, she has now come into the pit lane and is taking her drive-through penalty, and that means our top three in the AMs, Berwald, Richter, Ramelli, are back with no Shell drivers in between. So the race for that podium is firmly on.
Yes, so the problems that arguably Manuela may have had in terms of an out-of-category driver to try and get by have gone away now, because unfortunately she's had to take that drive-through penalty as deemed by race control. That coming in just as we were speaking to Ludovica. Okay, next in the target sights of Fons Skelterman, who of course appears to be the wronged party in that little incident. And he's the one who's having to really make strides now. And I have to say, he is absolutely doing that. And trying to use the metaphor used by Nico earlier on. He's trying to cut through like a hot knife slicing through butter at the moment. So we will see how his progression continues. Kirk Berwald, Martinus Richter and Giuseppe Ramelli are the AM drivers that are P1, 2 and 3 at the moment. And Kirk Berwald, I have to say, and I spoke to him over lunchtime, and he's really loving his driving in the European series of the Ferrari Challenge, and I have to say, has taken to this Misano World Circuit Marco Simoncelli like the proverbial duck to water, if I'm honest with you. Seems to be right up his street, and he is loving it, and he's a really nice guy to talk to. And if you come and visit us as part of the Ferrari Challenge as a live spectator, which we would love you to do, he'd be one driver well worth talking to. There is Skelterman then, who we were extolling the virtues of as he tries to put his car ahead of the Christian Herdvip 183 machine. The moment all of that has been denied by the German driver, who sticks his elbows out, as is his right to do. Of course, he's defending his track position. But Fons Skelterman will try and find a way by. Of that you can have no doubt whatsoever. Will he dive to the inside? Not quite close enough to be able to do it on that particular turn, which is a turn where he has proved to be something of an overtaking maestro in the past, but he wasn't able to do it on this particular occasion, Nico.
Absolutely, and as we watch that, we also have an eye on the lead battle, because Axel Sartingen, his lead was up to 1.8 seconds. It's now down to roughly a second, as Willem van der Boom just put in a faster lap by 4/10, and he is going very quick as well. And there is Fons Skelterman now in earnest trying to get by Christian Herdvip. A topic yesterday in the race were track limit excursions, and towards the end of the race we saw penalties. We haven't seen any yet, but obviously after 10 minutes tire degradation comes into play, car control a little bit less maybe, and therefore it's something that we need to watch for.
I think it's something that we will need to watch more towards the end of the race, more perhaps than at the moment, but very good point that you make, and one that we need to be across. Now, John Dillon has thus far not been able to find a way past Thomas Gostner. Now, part of that has been that he's had to, on occasions, defend from Eric Chung, but now he's gone back into attack mode rather than defense, and we are riding on board with Thomas Gostner at the moment. And there you can see Eric Chung once again. He's turning up the wick, and car number 107 is being given a drive-through penalty, and that is the Stefano Marazzi car. And that's a time penalty of 5 seconds, so it's the first of the track limit. So you were probably poetic to mention that when you did, Nico, and well done to you. You are something of a oracle, isn't, you know, it's like you've got a direct line into race control. Have you got a channel that I'm not aware of that you're using?
That is strictly confidential, as we keep John Dillon at the center of our attention, and Thomas Gostner has made a little bit of space between himself, and there is again the gap between Axel Sartingen and Willem van der Boom. Those two, Axel Sartingen is stretching his legs a little bit again.
Do you know what? I'm wondering whether Axel is being a wise old fox here, because he told to us over lunch that yesterday he was managing it just perfectly, and I just wonder whether he's just increasing, and what he's trying to do is really nurse his rubber and keep his tyres well within their operating window, and I just wonder whether we see the seesaw effect of those times as a consequence of him letting off when he can. I'm not saying letting off, but just not going for a quali lap every single time.
And there we could see there was an overtake, and I'm not sure if that was a mistake or if it was intentionally let by, because that certainly was
that Nussbaumer on Christensen?
I think it was. And that should not have been a backmarking car, so that looked like a overtake, but obviously it would have been an overtake.
Well, yeah, that would be for track position, wouldn't it?
Indeed, it was between P9 and P10 in the in Coppa Shell, so probably just a bit of a mistake. Peter Christensen running a bit wide from what we could see in that shot. And there again is our top three in the AMs. And Giuseppe Romelli, he has the fastest lap, but he's P3 in class.
There's quite a lot of traffic, and of course we're back to the similar colour story that we were yesterday, whereas yesterday it was the top three cars were all yellow. Today it's just the top two, isn't it? And they are occupied by Kirk Beervold and Martinus Richter at the moment. We can see them ahead of the car that we're on board with at the moment, who is running P3 in the AMS, and that is one Mr. G. Romelli. Giuseppe to his friends as he brakes now for this turn through the left-hander. This is what the Ferrari Challenge sounds like. Of the 488 Challenge Evos. We just like dipping into the soundtrack of that, if you will. And there is the 172 car, and that being driven by Giuseppe Romelli now. Thomas Gostner has broken away a bit from John Dillon now, and Christian Herdweber is chasing down Eric Chung. Now that will play into John Dillon's hands a little bit, because Eric Chung's review screen is going to be full of the battle that is ensuing behind him as they go very, very close together now. And of course this could play into the hands of von Skeltermar, who's trying to tick more overtakes into the plus point of his exercise book, if you will, in trying to make his way back up the order again. He was on the podium yesterday and was hoping to advance the steps in terms of his podium take in today's race, and that really opportunity was really taken away from him earlier on. But Thomas Gostner doing a good job in protecting that P3 position, and for the moment, this man, John Dillon, is not able to take it to him. Eric Chung flashing his lights, trying to get John Dillon just to lose concentration for a moment. It is a remarkable four-way fight for P4 at the moment between John Dillon, Eric Chung, Christian Herdweber and von Skeltermar. And John Dillon there hugging the inside, and therefore meaning that Eric Chung is going to have to take the long way around that double apex turn, which he chooses not to do. And Christian Herdweber almost getting to the inside of Eric Chung. Here comes that four-way fight then that's going on, and we're not far away from Christian Kinch joining in that and making it a five-way battle. So brilliant stuff that we're enjoying here over P4, 5, 6, and arguably P7 as well. So Dillon, Chung, Herdweber, and of course von Skeltermar. So Axel Sardigan, what's he got? 2 seconds to the good over Willem van der Vorm and Thomas Gostner right now, before we get back to this battle that continues to rage supreme. And well, you can see that Eric Chung was really having to stick his elbows out there as we go to the P1 and P2 drivers who have broken away from the rest of the pack. There's Axel Sardigan. Here is Willem van der Vorm going through on our shot. We just saw Thomas Gostner go through, but here is von Skeltermar taking a look at the inside of Christian Herdweber, but discretion the better part of valor at that particular point. It would have been very difficult to make that overtake stick and then scrub off the speed necessary to rotate the car through the turn. Well, the first half of the race has gone, incidentally. Where's it gone? My goodness me. Very, very quickly. So 14 and a half minutes now. I think, Nico, that tyre deg from here on in to the end of the race might become more of an issue with regards to track limits.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's one of the issues, that if you run too close behind another car, and Christian Herdweber might be one of those, von Skeltermar certainly one of those, who has done that for extensive periods of time, that is not good for the longevity of your tire. So you have to be really careful. You can't push all the time, you can't attack all the time, because it will ruin your rubber, and that means von Skeltermar probably he has to make the overtake or let off at some point.
And it's not in his DNA, is it, at the moment, to be doing any letting off whatsoever. He will feel wronged. That's already been proven by race control. I'll tell you what, Kirk Beerwold is under a bit of pressure now from Martinus Richter for the lead of the Ferrari Challenge Coppa Shell&AM race, and Martinez Richter putting his car to the inside and going by Kirk Beervold, who's got a problem, Nico, because he's really royally slowing.
Yeah, absolutely well picked up by our team in the OB van, because that came out of nowhere. And he's immediately lost 2 positions. It looks like he might lose more, so not sure what the issue is, but there definitely is one, and that puts Martinez Richter in the lead of the AMs. Giuseppe Romelli P2, and well, Kirk Beervold will struggle for the rest of the race, it seems, for the moment.
Wow, that was really unfortunate. Kirk Beervold, who had done such a good job, and now for the first time we can see Roger Grols in the mix now. Of course, he had to start from the pit lane, and Roger Grols, of course, is racing in the Shell category, but he is able to get past a number of the AM driving cars. Now, is he going to get on terms with the battle in Shell? I think it would be a big ask and a tall order with the 12 3/4 minutes that we've got left in the race. But even so, really unfortunate for Kirk Beervold as von Skeltermar looks at the inside again, but Christian Herdvip is well aware of it, and he runs wide. He couldn't make the turn. So the pressure that was being put on him by von Skeltermar means that he does go through. So von Skeltermar and, well, Christian Herdvip are losing out to Christian Kinch as well. Now, Carl 151 has got a time penalty by overtaking going off the track at turn 2. And, well, I never did. That, of course, is John Dillon, who could have... it's a story of what could have been, I think, isn't it? But there you go. Rules are rules, Nico.
Yeah, you know, we didn't quite see the scene, or it's not in context. Maybe that was part of the advance that he made at the beginning of the race.
Yeah, gotta be.
And obviously for von Skeltermar indirectly, that means he gains another place, and therefore his P6 all of a sudden becomes P5, and Eric Chung right in front of him. Now, he started in a much better position, but he is basically making up for it, and he's sniffing a podium, I can tell.
Do you know what? I think you could be right. What have we got? 11.5 minutes of the race remaining. Now, very interested to see how he can still further progress one Mr. von Skeltermar, but by goodness, he is driving like a demon. Often we see some of the best performances from racing drivers when they have been perhaps wronged, and well, we can see their drive-through penalty for car number 107. That is Stefano Marazzi.
And he is currently running in P3 in the AMs, so that changes the order in the AMs. You already predicted that penalties would likely come towards the end of the race. Oh, that was close. Alexander Nussbaumer diving out of whatever attempts he may have thought about, but nothing happening there. So 10 minutes, 47 seconds remaining, and well, will penalties shape the end of this race? It's not out of the question.
And it's not out of, it could be the same as yesterday, where we saw penalties have an impact on the result of the race, and perhaps that will be the case again today. Let's see. There is our race leader, Axel Sardigan. There is our P2 driver, Willem van der Voorn. They've kind of been out in their own two-car show, haven't they, for a number of laps. And there is Thomas Gosner. So P1, 2, and 3 in Coppa Shell really gapping the rest of the pack, in my opinion. And then we get into that fight that is continuing to rage. So Martinez Richter, who really took, I thought it was a really bold move to get by Kirk Beervold. At that point, we didn't realize that Kirk Beervold had obviously got some issue, and he's dropped down the order significantly, but he is still running, I believe, Nico.
Yes, he is. Certainly didn't come into the pits and has kind of... He hasn't really stabilized. He's still losing a second and change per sector. So there is some nagging issue, whatever it is, that doesn't allow him to be competitive anymore in terms of his lap times. There is Giuseppe Romelli, and he's definitely competitive. He's quite a few seconds, 4.8 behind Martinez Richter for P1. But remember, 5 seconds is the magic number that the first penalty brings, so...
Oh, my goodness me, that's von Skeltermar involved in that, Nico. I don't know about the other car. I couldn't quite pick it out.
Could be Eric Chung, based on where they were on track, but I couldn't see it either, because John Dillon's still running there. I was just about to say, the timing screen is becoming littered with track limits, but we now have a safety car, which is inevitable for the stricken von Skeltermar, and we think Eric Chung, and I think you're absolutely right, it would be Eric Chung, because they were together, weren't they? So safety car is called for. Hopefully we'll get a replay of that incident pretty quickly. There is John Dillon, Christian Kinch, and
There's Alexander Nussbaumer in the 136 car. So safety car has been called for in the closing stages of this race, or certainly into the final third of this race. And yeah, Eric Chung and von Skeltermeyer are the drivers that are dropping down the order. Now, of course, for Axel Sardigan, who's done nothing wrong all race long, the big gap he had over Willem van der Vorm will count as naught when it comes to the restart. With 8.5 minutes left to run, let's see how quickly we can get those stricken cars recovered. First and foremost, we need to know that Fons is perfectly okay, which he is. He's out of the car, and we hope the same too from Eric Chung. So the Kessel Racing driver, and indeed there is Eric Chung walking away from the car, so he's perfectly okay as well. So that, as always, Nico, is of primary importance.
Oh, of course, absolutely. And well, the driver's obviously a little bit in despair because both of them were running in very promising positions, and well, yeah.
And as always, each driver will have a different perspective on how it happened. And there is Corinne Chung, Eric Chung's wife. Thankfully, Corinne, we can tell you Eric is perfectly okay. You can see that from the screen. So, and same message to Cyril. My goodness me, Nico.
Quite an impact on the...
Oh, do you know what? That is so good to see. So good to see.
Yeah, and that is, you know, the spirit of the Ferrari Challenge in one picture.
Wholeheartedly.
And you could see that you couldn't quite make out what exactly happened, but apparently they came out of the turn and they're talking about it. And the thing is, when you exit the turn, the car is extremely light. What does that mean? The grip level isn't there, and if you just tip it a little bit in the wrong direction, you have rotational force inside the car already. And that just continues, and you have no chance of controlling it anymore.
Having seen the extent of that impact, Nico, which will have stricken various body parts across the track, it's going to be very, very tight in terms of 6 3/4 minutes remaining in terms of getting that sorted out. So there's Eric Chung and von Skeltermeyer. Ironically, two of the most experienced drivers in the Ferrari Challenge, having a conversation about what went on and how it happened. And I think, Nico, you may have nailed it absolutely correctly. The car is light at that point, and therefore the grip availability and affordability is perhaps not so great, and therefore no blame apportioned by either of the drivers. We could see that from their body language. Okay, so let's get a replay of the start once again, and that was where Fons was going really, really well and almost put it into P2 at that point. Some rubbing going on a little bit further back, and here we can see it from our drone shot, and Manuela Gosner turning across the front of von Skeltermeyer. That took her around and obviously put Fons much, much further back down the order than he would have liked to have been. However, all really academic now, because we can see that very driver, von Skeltermeyer, he's out of the car and he's perfectly okay, but regrettably his race is over. Of that there is no doubt. Safety car is out, the recovery is underway, but the minutes of course are counting down as we were towards the end of the race, or into the final third of the race anyway, with 5.5 minutes remaining. The clock continues to tick away whilst we are in the safety car. The order is Axel Sardigan, Willem van der Vorm and Thomas Gosner, P1, 2 and 3. And then it's Martinus Richter, Giuseppe Romelli and Henrik Kamstrup, the 1, 2, 3 for Ferrari Challenge, Coppa, Shell&AM. So the Kessel driver, the Formula driver, having a discussion about how that incident occurred. And from the body language, Nico, and from the way that they're talking to each other, I would suggest that it was just one of those very, very unfortunate racing incidents where no one can be blamed. It's just one of those things.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's certainly by all appearances. Neither of them is blaming the other too much, and which is good, obviously. I mean, both are race drivers, both are hugely experienced, and neither of them is malicious in any shape or form. And we've got a red flag, and that, I fear, is going to be the end of this race. And potentially it might mean that we will have some damage to the barriers, potentially, because that was quite an impact, and therefore that race, that repair might take longer. We'll keep you updated on whether we go back racing in this race.
Yes, of course, we have the red flag situation now, so I think Nico may have called that absolutely correctly, that perhaps we have got barrier damage, and that's the reason why the race has been red flagged. Finish is up on the top of the screen. So Sardigan, van der Vorm, Gosner for Coppa Shell, for Coppa Shell&AM, it's Richter, Romelli and Kamstrup. And there is Giuseppe Romelli, who we are on board with right now. And yeah, the red flag is flying. And just once again, in case you've only just joined us, just want to reinforce the fact that the accident that has caused the red flag was a racing incident. Involved von Skeltema and Eric Chung. Both of the drivers are perfectly okay, and in fairness, they're having a discussion about the whole thing as we speak. So just want to reinforce that the integral safety of the 488 Challenge Evo is such that the drivers are having a conversation about it, which is always the most important thing for us to see. We hate to see the race brought to a conclusion early on, but we have a checkered flag across the red flag as well, which means the result is going to be taken as we are. I think I can confirm that from our timing screen. The red and checkers being shown together means that that race is done and dusted. Okay, let's go down into the Kessel Racing Garage with Ludovica.
Anouk, we are under a red flag. Can you tell us more about what happened in the last lap?
Well, what we saw on TV, because we don't have the onboard yet, it seems that there is a crash between Shang and our car with von Skeltema. So now we wait to see what happened exactly. But the main thing is that all the drivers are okay, so that's the most important thing.
We see from the images more fair play, and this is a beautiful thing.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, at least. Let's say it's not the way we wanted to finish the weekend, but it's motorsport, it's like this.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Yes, motorsport, it's described as being beautiful, but also at times brutal as well. But that is the best image in the world. And that is of two drivers that have had it coming together, and both of them consoling each other for the end result. But both of them are perfectly okay. And now we can see Axel Sardingen and Willem van der Vorm having a conversation as well. They are, of course, P1 and P2. And they're having a discussion about that. I have to say, I'm really, really impressed with Axel Sardingen and Martinus Richter. Now, Martinus Richter's victory, may I say, Nico, is all down to the coaching that I gave him whilst enjoying a cup of tea earlier on today. Martinus and I having a really good conversation. Now, of course, Martinus is, to the best of my knowledge, the only doctor that is on the grid as a racing driver, as a surgeon.
Well,
No, whether I told
just what the doctor ordered is
Oh, no, I didn't expect that pun.
Sorry.
I really didn't expect that pun. Well done, Martinus. Well done. I'm sure it was all down to my motivation and coaching. Not. So there's Giuseppe Romelli out of his car as well. So we have the result then as confirmed. Unfortunately, the race finishing under the red flag and checkers combined, which is always disadvantageous. We never want to see that, but there we are. It is the way it is, and being congratulated there by Henrik Kamstrup as well. I have to say, one of the things for me, Nico, and we've seen that really very, very evident today, is the camaraderie there is in the paddock of the Ferrari Challenge. And you know, when we look at those images between Eric Chung and von Skeltema, that really, really reinforces that. And also, look, there's Thomas Gosner and David Gosner in there offering bravo and congratulations to Axel Sardingen. So, yeah, the atmosphere is something that we try our level best to recreate on TV, and I think you're seeing that because despite the accident, look at this, loads and loads and loads of smiling faces.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, first of all, there is obviously the relief that nothing worse has happened as we get the results for you on screen. Axel Sardingen, our winner, Willem van der Worm, Thomas Gostner, Christian Kinch, Christian Hurt-Wieper, Alexander Nussbaumer. And then for the AMs, it's Martinus Richter, Giuseppe Romelli. Then we've got Peter Christensen and John Dillon rounding out the next Shell drivers with Roger Grols in P11. Henrik Kamstrup is our P3 driver in the AMs. Motohiko Isozaki from the back of the grid to P4. As we take a look at some of the images that we were able to enjoy.
congratulations for today. This weekend for you is very important. You made a good start and you overcome your opponents and with Winder there was a very battle on the circuit.
Yes, I couldn't manage to make the pole. I did a small mistake, and 1/10 is so narrow, everything. 1/10 behind, so I had P2, and I was knowing that I do an attack on the beginning. It was my plan, and it works out. So safe, but the way I drive. And then I gapped 2 seconds, and that was the reason that I could finish easily. Then we had this heavy crash. The car was perfect, so my team, Hertha, did the perfect car for me. So I'm proud. We did 2 wins on this weekend, so now we go to Austria. Hopefully the weather is same as good as here in lovely Misano. So I'm happy, and leading the championship can go on this year. And my team does a good job, so we hope that this year we can make it.
Thanks. Congratulations again. Thank you.
Well done to Axel Sardingen, and always a great interview when you hear from Axel. And as he says, leading the Drivers' Championship points, which is exactly what he needs when he moves into the next. It's only a couple of 3 weeks away, I think, before we go to Spielberg in Austria. Now, Martinus Richter, who, as I say, I was having a lovely chat with just before lunch, or just after lunch, actually, and we'll be speaking to him in just a moment.
Martinus, congratulations for the result and for the race about today. Can you tell more about your feeling now to be here?
Yesterday I was really unhappy because I had a crash in the last lap, which was unfortunate for me and not my fault. And today the qualifying was also not so nice. But then in the race I found the pace. I was the fastest in the Shell&AM and I had no problems. And I'm really happy that I won this race. And thank you, Ferrari, for doing this.
Thank you so much.
He's a great guy. He's a great driver. Well done, Martinus Richter. He has taken the win in Coppa Shell&AM. So the top 3 confirmation in Coppa Shell: Axel Sardingen, Willem van der Vorm and Thomas Gostner. In Coppa Shell&AM, Martinus Richter, Giuseppe Romelli and Henrik Kamstrup. Don't forget, follow us on @Ferrari Races. Here are the highlights now. Here come the statistics then, of which the sudden fade on the music bed, gentlemen in audio. Right, in Coppa Shell is Christian Herdvip, who made the best progress, up 6 places. But then Martinus Richter in Coppa Shell&AM vaulted that by going up 9 places and taking the race win. No surprise that the fastest laps came from our victors. Fastest lap in Coppa Shell from Axel Sardingen, fastest lap in Coppa Shell&AM from Martinus Richter. So there we have it then. The race, of course, brought into a red flag and a checkered flag together. But we'll be going up to the podium shortly. There is Manuela Gostner and Giorgio Sonagiotto having a discussion about the race. And here we go to the podium then. Taking P3 is Thomas Gostner. His first podium of the weekend. Willem van der Vorm then takes P2. And around the top step of the podium, the entertainer, Mr. Axel Sardingen. And Frank Herter there from Herter Racing then on behalf of the team as well. And time for the national anthem. So, the drivers then about to be presented with their trophies. Miguel Molina is here, official Competizione GT driver for Ferrari, making the trophy presentation first of all to Thomas Gostner, then to Willem van der Vorm. And of course, the race winner's trophy will be awarded to one Mr. Axel Sartingen. So Miguel Molina, official Ferrari Competizione GT driver. And of course, Frank Herter will receive a trophy as well for the team that engineered Axel Sartingen's car. So all the drivers together then for the photographs. Come on, Frank, you can get in that mix as well. And there the trophies held proudly by our 1, 2, 3 drivers. And all the photographs are taken. So it's Axel Sartingen, Willem van der Vorm, and Thomas Gostner, along with Frank Herter there as well. And the cars that propelled those drivers to their respective podium positions. For CDP MP Racing, Thomas Gostner, P3. Taking P2 for Scuderia Monte Carlo. Big it up for Willem van der Vorm. And then the race winner, 2 out of 2 this weekend. What a great job by Lueg Sportivo Herter Racing. An even better job by the driver, Axel Sartingen. Share your passion, Ferrari races. We'd urge you to do that. In the Drivers' Championship points, look at this. Axel Sartingen going to Spielberg in Austria with a very, very healthy points margin of 24 over Manuel Gostner, who's P2 in the points. Von Skeltermeyer is P3 in the points, and Willem van der Vorm is coming shouting now. He's P4 in the points. So Drivers' Championship looking very, very healthy indeed. We're standing by for the Coppa Shell&AM podium, which comes up next. And there you can see the drivers standing by. Giuseppe Romelli to the left. To the right is Henrik Kamstrup, and in the middle, just a little bit behind, is Martinus Richter. And then to the left of them is the boss, of course, of Clienti, and that's Mr. Andrea Miladicic. So Henrik Kamstrup then heads to step 3 of the podium. Here comes Giuseppe Romelli. He takes P2. And then on the top step of the podium, a richly deserved victory for Martinus Richter. And of course, Mertel will be there on the team as well as Motohiko Isazaki. One of our drivers looks on and salutes those drivers on the podium. National anthem time. So the anthem plays out, and once again, Miguel Molina is here to make the trophy presentations, the official Ferrari Competizione GT driver. The reason for the smile in my face is because my production crew alongside me here have just found me a cup of tea. Wonderful, chaps. Thank you. Right, so Henrik Kamstrup receives his trophy. Next in the order, of course, is going to be Giuseppe Romelli. And then it's going to be Martinus Richter, who receives the race winner's trophy. He wears the Pirelli First baseball cap, and now he's got the P1 trophy as well. Well done to Martinus Richter, and well done to all our Coppa Shell drivers. It was a dramatic race once again, that's for sure. And there, Motel Motorsport receiving their trophy as well. And there, once again, is Motohiko Isazaki looking on and enjoying the podium. They all pose for their photographs, quite rightly, and it's always well populated just beneath the podium. And there the champagne celebrations continue from our Coppa Shell&AM drivers. The cars then that put those drivers in their podium places. Henrik Kamstrup for Formula Racing, he takes P3. Taking P2 then, Giuseppe Ramelli for Rosso Corsa Pellin Racing. And taking the race win, Motel Motorsports engineered all yellow 488 Challenge Evo as driven by Martinez Richter. So spectators here have really enjoyed a Ferrari Challenge Coppa Shell race, that's for sure. As I said, plenty of drama in that race and lots to get your head around. And unfortunately, the race concluding somewhat early by dint of the crash between Eric Chung and von Skeltermar. It was just a racing incident. The drivers embraced each other because it was just one of those things. Into the Drivers' Championship points now for Coppa Shell&AM, and we can see that Kirk Beervold on 45 points leads Motohiko Isasaki with Boris Gideon P3. Then it's Henrik Kamstrup on P4 now. One to keep an eye on, I would suggest. So those the Drivers' Championship points for Ferrari Challenge Coppa Shell&AM. As I say, it was the reason the race got curtailed somewhat early due to the accident between von Skeltermar and Eric Chung. Both the drivers are perfectly okay, and both the drivers were hugging each other at the end of that because it was just a racing incident. It was very unfortunate, but again, reinforcing the integral safety of the 488 Challenge Evo. Both the drivers were out of the cars and perfectly okay, which was really, really good to see. Share your passion, Ferrari races. We would love you to do that. And we have, of course, another a race to look forward to, a Trofeo Pirelli race to come a little bit later. But for the Coppa Shell drivers, they'll be heading off to the Styrian Mountains in Austria, because it will be the Spielberg circuit where the Ferrari Challenge Coppa Shell drivers will be next, qualifying and racing. Please follow us on any form of social media at Ferrari Races. We would love you to do that. Enjoy some of the images from our weekend for Ferrari Challenge Coppa Shell drivers here in the Misano World Circuit Marco Simoncelli. Forza Ferrari.